Hello, project people. Welcome to a new episode of the Project Chatter podcast. And remember to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast player or check us out on YouTube. And you can see our lovely, friendly faces. I'm not sure about mine, but yours maybe, Dale. Dale, how are you? How's the weather over there in the UK?
I'm well, thank you. You have a friendly face as well, Val. Don't be so hard on
Thanks, buddy.
yourself.
When I shave, yes.
Maybe you had a tash the other day, which was interesting. But yeah, the weather is fantastic. I was saying just before we hit record, the UK is going to have a heat wave. Brace yourself, Australians. It's going to be 30 degrees. That
Stop
is
it.
very, very hot in the UK. For those that are not aware. But yeah, it's great. We have summer maybe for a week or two.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you get out there and there's not too much lockdown happening. We are joined by some very special guests today, a very exciting topic. I can't wait to get into it because, there's numbers involved. We are joined today by Bryn Lockett and Adam Kingsbury. How are you guys going? Bryn, how are you?
Fantastic. Thank you. It's nice to be here again, guys. I'm really well. Thank you.
Welcome back to the show. And Adam, first timer, how are you?
Very well, thanks. Nice to meet you all. And looking forward to this sunny weather coming up in London.
Yeah, we keep rubbing it in. I'm in Melbourne, so we're still cold. I got the heater on right now, but we'll have our turn. But let's get into this. I mean, this subject is so fascinating. You guys have been doing such a great job, year after year, getting this out there and getting us some really interesting insights from all sorts of industries across all sorts of sectors. And I think, firstly, I just want to say thank you for doing that. Dale and I are big fans of this. I think it's something that we need to continue, and we're massive advocates for shared knowledge and paying it forward. So we really appreciate the efforts that your team's doing. Now let's get into this. I would love to know about this change of name. So we're going from, I think it was just the traditional Project Controls survey, tell me if I'm wrong, to the Integrated Project Controls survey. So the marketing team came up with a new title. Is that right, Bryn?
They have. They've done fantastically well. No, it is actually. It's more the you've half got it right, Val. So we moved to the integrated project controls piece, but then the additional focus was the and digital insights piece. And it's kind of just recognised
and digital insights.
Actually, okay. The world that we work in is and you'll sort of see as the report comes out this year. There's actually been quite a significant step change in the amount of digital that's sort of. The digital step up, I guess, in industry. So there's going to be a bit of a sort of a shift, I think, in terms of the focus of the focus of the survey moving forward as part of that. So.
Yeah, brilliant. And whose idea was it, Adam? Whose idea was it? This new title?
I think I'm going to have to sort of handball that one to Bryn. I'm going to blame him for the naming rights. But no, it's something that I've certainly been saying that we need to sort of look into more, particularly with my focus in the business on the technology and innovation side as well. So it's good to see that it's something that we can shed a bit more light onto.
I completely agree. And look, not to tease you, I mean, I really do actually think that it's a really good idea. You've changed the name to include, again, diversity of thought, but then inclusivity of various different things that are impacting pretty much every project on the planet. And aptly named because of COVID and other kind of worldly things. I think there's a massive adoption and kind of speed to some of these technologies, like what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into the technologies, I just want to ask, is this Project Controls survey ever going to stop? Are you planning to continue this for a long period of time? How long before you get sick of doing surveys? I just want to know.
So let me say first, actually, before I say that, I just want to quickly say, by the way, so one of the different things that we're doing this year is obviously is the launch is a bit different. So we're coming to you guys who are equally sort of, dedicating your time and putting your time into sort of getting, sharing learnings and the likes within industry. So we thought this year it'll be just a great opportunity to kind of team up. So as team up and sort of do the launch with yourselves. So thank you for letting us do that. And we're pleased to be sort of equally sort of, to work with you guys, who all of us sort of given back a little bit to industry, which is great. So the question in terms of how long do we sort of keep doing it? I think as long as it changes and as long as we move with industry and ideally sort of help shape industry, it's a space that we want to continue to be in. there's times when you sort of find yourself asking the same question or answering the same question where you sort of go, oh, bloody hell, we've got to move on from asking this again type thing. But it is one of those things. I jumped back into a survey from a couple of years back, just over the last few days, because there was just some really interesting stats that I was looking for that was available from the survey. I was like, oh, we're going to have that. We need to ask that question in that way again next year, actually, so we can kind of do a comparator with regards to that one was around systems and the use of systems and who was using what. So it's time that we come back to that question and see that step change. So as long as we don't, we've got to change it, because otherwise it's dull. But so we just got to keep incrementally changing it so we can kind of see industry movement and change whilst keeping it fresh and as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a good answer, and I'll get Adam in there in a second. I think just the other question to follow up is this survey. I mean, if anyone hasn't seen it or heard it or read it or even been part of it, contributed to it, is this the largest project control survey out there? I mean, I don't want to claim anything yet, but I think, in terms of its uniqueness and its coverage, I think this is pretty one of the biggest I've seen out there that's free and available. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd go the Carlsberg ad and just sort of say probably the biggest project control survey in the world. So yeah, no, it is. I think we haven't come across any others. We have spotted a few other, we've spotted a number of the sort of the bigger consultancies now sort of getting out there and testing the market a little bit. So which is fantastic. So the more we sort of get out there, the more that people sort of share their voice, share their learnings. That for me, that's all good. But yeah, so we're probably one of the longer surveys that's been around with that sort of that niche focus on the control space. So yeah.
Excellent. So we do actually have 4 people in the project control space on this podcast. So it's going to get very technical and geeky. I'm going to hand off to Dale before I get into the digital side of things, Bryn and Adam, because there is a lot to dip into. We do have a copy of the report. I'm not sure when it's going to be released yet, but we will kind of cover everything we can without giving too much away, because we do want people to still have a look at this report. It's fantastic. So Dale, over to you.
Thanks, Val. Yeah, no, that is fascinating. I love the name change as well. And just looking at some of the survey respondents, it is truly global, but over 50%, 58% from Europe. That is amazing. Is that telling in terms of, have you looked into why such a huge amount of respondents from Europe?
I've got a view on it, but I'll let Adam have a go first at that one.
Sorry.
Well, I think the reality is that the survey has been driven from Logikal, and obviously our first port of call when we're asking people to build this up is from the contacts we have. So it's naturally going to be centered around Europe and Australia and in Asia, where we have a market presence primarily. But I think it's interesting to see as it each year goes, we're getting more and more respondents coming through from other regions of the world as it starts to sort of reach out into the broader contact list of other project controls professionals.
Yeah, I guess I'd second that. I think it's probably a little bit indicative of the I guess brand awareness. We're only small, but in the UK and Europe, we've probably got a slightly stronger brand than we do in Australia as well. Australia is sort of emerging, so yeah. So I think that's partially indicative of the survey respondents as well.
Awesome. So hopefully through this podcast, you have a much bigger presence, because everyone will now know of the survey. That are listening, and we do have a big reach in the US as well, so hopefully those in the US will pick that up. I also want to touch on, Bryn, you did mention about growing the industry and paying it forward as well, and a huge part of what we do on the podcast is around charity, and for every survey you did donate or equivalent to £1, and what was the total that was donated?
So in fairness, when I say it like this, it sounds very small, because we had just over 1,000 respondents. So we donated just over 1,000 quid. So that was 1,000 quid is 1,000 quid. When I hear it like that, I kind of go, we could have done more type thing. But it's part of a broader paying it forward piece, I guess, with the pledge 1% thing. So this isn't the only thing we give to, but this is just one element of it. So the pledge 1%, I'm not sure if people know about that, but that that's all around sort of putting 1% of your profits into back into the sort of the paying it forward space, really. So.
Well, it is truly amazing. To make you feel any better, if you convert that to South African rand, it's probably just under 20,000 rand. So that is awesome.
Thanks. That makes me feel better. So.
Adam, and then just looking at organizational types, it's quite an even split between contractors, consultancies, and client owners. Is there anything to read into that, or is that just who responded?
I think that's really just who responded. Again, because we touch on each of those different spectrums in the jobs that we do. That's what we're seeing come through. I think actually probably the most reassuring thing to see out of that is that it is a relatively even spread. It actually gives you a bit more confidence in the fact that there are differing perspectives coming through on the survey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, I don't want to give away all the stats. Folks listening to this or watching it on YouTube, get your hands on it. Do we have a launch date of when it's going to be made available?
Yeah.
My understanding is that we'll make it available as of next week. So you guys got a lucky early copy, just so you could have a look and ask us some questions around it. So lucky you guys, but. But for the rest of the world, it'll be launched off the back of the airing of this session. So which I believe is off the back of the airing of this session.
Awesome, that is amazing, and thank you for giving us an early copy. Right, so before we get into AI, I just want to touch on one of the key findings that I find quite astonishing. I mean, maybe I'll come to you for this one, Adam. Only 22% of projects have skilled teams, fully integrated processes and systems. Only 22%. I find that jaw-dropping.
I'd actually say fully integrated is the key word on that one. In general experience, I'm not too surprised by that. I think actually that number has been increasing over the years that we've been watching the survey. And that's actually the key takeaway there is that people are starting to see the value of fully integrated, and it plays out in the numbers that we see as far as the distribution of successful versus unsuccessful projects within each of those different bands. If you're working in a fully integrated project control space, you've got ahead and on top of how your processes work. You know what training you need for your people. You know what information you need, and it's actually the fact that you've gone through that pain is actually why you're performing well. You've looked under the hood of what you're actually trying to deliver, and that's truly the value of project controls, is actually making sure that you've got everything on lock as to what you're doing in that space.
Good points.
Can I just build on that, Doug? Because I sort of think I completely agree with that, obviously, but in terms of one of the things I'm excited about at the moment with where industry's at is a lot of sort of most regions that we're working in is really sort of focused on collaboration, getting clients and contractors working better together. So collaboration and transparency, and building trust both ways within that within the sort of the key relationships there. And I just, so for me, I'll bring it back to your point, but for me the key there is the fact that actually that is that togetherness, that is that sort of those regular touch points and the like. So and for me, controls is a massive enabler of that. And it's an enabler of that in an environment where actually those processes and the systems are integrated to encourage those touch points within the different functions and the likes, and between the different parties that are involved in projects. So I'm very pleased to see industry going that way. I think it's the right way for industry to be going, and I'm very pleased that we're in a space that actually is a massive enabler of those positive behaviours as well.
I think, it's also fair to say that the engineering construction space has traditionally not been a highly technologically forward-looking industry, at least as far as the IT space goes. I know there's a lot of innovative stuff they do on the actual hard engineering side, but bringing some of the latest stuff in and the latest processes and systems has somewhat lagged behind other industries, particularly IT and finance and places like that. So that's also sort of telling in that fully integrated space as well, I believe.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I agree. I'll jump in there as well. I think the really good thing about this survey, I was going to say this pack, like a slide deck. This pack is you do include a little bit around diversity and inclusivity, which is great. Your survey, I said it again, is actually evolving over time and not just looking at data and technology, but you're also including the people part, which we know on projects is really, really important.
Yeah, no, good points. Good points. Sorry, go ahead, Bryn.
Yeah. No, I was going to say it is. I mean, it's one of those things. I do remember when we actually it was probably a survey maybe 2 years ago that we launched, and I think that was one of the first years we included diversity in the mix with the questions, and this was the London launch actually. But it's one of those things. We focus. Well, this year we've broadened out a little bit, but historically we've had it was very much a gender diversity point, and off the back of that launch, and quite a few people sort of said, look, it's not just gender, and it sort of just kept bringing us back to that point, which is very true. It's just it's diversity in thought, which comes with a lot various forms of diversity basically. So we've tried to broaden out from that a little bit this year, but obviously it's you can go a long way with that actually. So
yeah, all interesting. Interesting
I was
stats.
just going to jump in there with that. Sorry, mate.
Go for it.
Just because Bryn and I go on forever. We have long conversations. But I was going to say, I think this evolution, we're seeing this language is really good, because it used to be there was a discussion about kind of equality of outcome and other interesting facets. But this diversity of thought, I think we've hit the nail on the head. I think that's the way to describe it. That's exactly what we want. We want diversity of thought, because that drives new ideas and new behaviors and new culture and inclusivity. And I think that's the mixing bowl we need for that culture. That's the bit that I think will help people, join the construction industry and kind of make it a little bit more of a level playing field.
Yeah, agreed. It removes the majority. Okay. I'll stop. Go, Dale, over to you.
Gentlemen, this is a talk show, so don't stop talking. It's great. Everyone wants to talk at the same time. This is fantastic. But I just wanted to jump back and just on that word, and I think you mentioned it, Adam, fully integrated. Now, a lot of people hear this. What does it actually mean? Is it just the processes and systems, just the tech side? Or as Bryn alluded to, is it also that collaboration, the team around it? What does fully integrated actually mean, one? And two, can we truly ever be fully integrated with the advance of technology, with AI and all these various other aspects coming in, diversity of thought? If we truly fully integrated, then you'd imagine there's an absolute, but it seems infinite. So I just want to challenge that one a little bit, Adam.
No, I guess probably when we're looking at what do we term fully integrated in the analysis, it's probably just looking more at the traditional elements of what is in that sort of project controls wheelhouse. So looking at your cost and your schedule and your risk and etc. and how does that all fit together? Absolutely, it's always going to be a moving target as to what needs to be fully integrated into the piece. And even if you look at a large scale project and what you need integrated now for early phase development versus what you need integrated later when you're in full construction, actually even that can change. The stuff that you need to analyze and report is vastly different if you're managing design deliverables versus what you actually want to see when you're putting stuff in the ground. So yeah, that's an interesting one to really pick apart a little bit more as to what do we mean when we say fully integrated. I think the other part of that is it's not just the systems, it is the processes and the people and the training has to be part of that package, because if you don't have anyone driving it, none of it works anyway. So that's one that we rabbit on about quite a lot when we're talking with our clients.
Yeah, no, very interesting. Bryn, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I'd sort of say it's. I guess Adam's point about it. It's not just systems piece. So it's sort of in my head. It was like it's not just me actually. So and I think that's the sort of thing. It's sort of it isn't just me. It's important that I understand what my neighbour's doing, what the guy over the other side of the desk is doing, type thing. And it's about just encouraging those touch points and making sure the right people are having the right discussions at the right time and the likes basically. So because I still find it amazing when you go into projects and or go into organisations and and different departments that should be talking to each other are just not, and it's just amazing. So anyway, but it's still there, and that's the thing that sort of surprises me, because it's like surely this is project delivery 101 type thing, but actually everyone gets, and I think it's a little bit of human nature. Everyone's not deliberately sort of being sort of going screw everyone else, it's all about me, but inherently they just sort of, they're focused on what they're trying to do, and they sort of forget the importance of the sort of the need to basically be sharing what they're doing with others, and understanding what others need from them as part of that process and the like. So
I think the other side of that coin as well is if people are trying to make the project successful, but things are starting to go a bit wrong, then people start to close ranks as well, and you actually end up siloed again. So you've got to continually remind people why it's important to be engaging across the different functions, and making sure they're aware of each other's needs.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Agreed.
As you say, as the pressure draws in, those things that you think you should be doing, you forget about them, because focus goes solely onto the problem areas. But then that leads me into, I guess, the people and capability part of the report. And again, projects with a poor standard of skills level are 3.4 times more likely to fail. So that's very, very telling. We won't go into that. There's a whole piece. People go ahead, grab a copy of the survey, because we do want to head onto AI. Now, Val and I discussed this on another podcast, where AI can stand for anything. It can stand for all in. It can stand for Adam integrated. It can stand for anything. What do we mean about AI in this report, Bryn?
I'm passing over to Adam actually on this one. AI is a topic. I mean, I like it, and I can completely understand why people get very excited about it. I can completely, when I look at the mess of my head, I can completely understand if I put a little computer in there and got it working instead, and probably do a much better job. But Adam is better placed to answer that. So let me pass it to him.
Well, I think actually, to be honest, within the survey itself, we were pretty broad on, we didn't provide or offer a definition of what we classed as AI. We asked the respondents to identify whether or not there was any AI initiatives related to project controls that they're either delivering right now or intending to do so somehow in the near future or long term. As purely for that fact is what do we even mean by AI within the construction industry? There's so many different factors that you could look at, be it engineering, and big data type data streams coming in off your site. And you got automatic number plate recognition for tracking your emissions, or it could be down to the stuff that we're still not seeing a lot of, but like actually AI in project planning and scheduling. So what's the right definition there? It's very hard to say. A lot of it's interesting though.
Yeah, and I think we kind of badge it as essentially smart technologies as a broad capture point. So.
Yeah, no, it is interesting, and it does depend on perspective, because we're just chatting to a guest, and we're saying, well, if you went back in time, and those planners that were using a pen and paper to draw out a schedule, or even just look at data, and then you showed them Excel, they'd be like, wow, that's AI. It's about perspective. So
it is.
It's amazing. But okay, so we've come to sort of the survey's perspective on what AI is or isn't. What was interesting about it, Adam? What were the results that came in? What can we draw from these data points?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing for me is the numbers bear out, as far as it's still not really hugely prevalent within the industry. And what I drew from it really was for those that are using it right now, if you look at the type of project they were on, how successful they were, how integrated they were, they're the projects that are right at the top of the chart. They've got everything sorted. And the reality is for me that you kind of need to have a pretty good handle on a lot of your basic project controls functions and information handling requirements before you start to draw the value of AI. So I think, you know, that confirmed for me what I believe to be the case. But it also gives us, you know, some good justification and reasoning behind why do we need to do better in even the basics of controls, and why that needs to be a common driver. If you want to, you know, really use this stuff and draw the benefits, then let's start talking about and making a plan around what we do to bring our orgs up to, you know, the next level of maturity.
Interesting. Brent, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I think it was pleasing to see actually the results. So actually, because as much as just there's a relatively small percent that are actually currently using AI, the percentage of people that sort of recognize it as something, whereas previously I think you wouldn't have really heard that, but there's quite a significant proportion that aren't using it now but can see themselves using it within the next 5 years, and that's a bit I find that's for me that's a reflection of people's sort of acceptance of technology, I guess, to a degree, and they're sort of understanding that actually technology is coming. There's no longer a fear for it, basically. And there's much more sort of much more interest in actually looking at how technology can help us deliver projects and the like better. But I would reinforce Adam's point. I think there's with good data, there'll be amazing things that we can do with smart systems.
Yeah.
But my feeling is that we're a while away from that. We've got to sort of go through a period of sort of data, being more transparent with our data, making sure that actually it is reflecting reality, so that we can learn and develop from it, rather than misrepresenting our data to tell a story that we want to tell, which isn't actually the case.
Yeah. I think the other big thing is really it's painting a picture of what are we going to see happening and changing in this industry in the next 5 years. And it's a lot more data heavy workloads and information within the industry, and with an eye on that AI stuff coming through. So if you're looking for where to move in the industry next, it's get on top of information handling, and that's going to be a core part of everybody's job, more and more so as we move forward.
Agree. And shout out to folks like Martin Paver for pushing it in the UK. Data analytics, etc. He's a huge advocate for pushing it. So I definitely think there is a lot of space, and I think a lot of people think or aware or know that this is what we should be doing. But what the survey does is bring together the collective view of the industry. And that's, I think, more powerful than just, perhaps sitting in your team or your virtual team, just a few of you talking about it, actually the whole industry and what's happening with it. But I know Val loves AI. So I'm going to hand to him to peel back all the layers and go down all those rabbit holes. And yes, see if there's any questions Adam can't answer, Val.
I know he's good. I think there's interesting forces at play in the marketplace, in particular. That's kind of forcing us to reassess how we manage projects using technology. Right. I think one of them is the way government is mandating new projects. They're kind of becoming an educated client, if you like, in the technology space. So UK is a perfect example on the BIM kind of side of things, but AI as well, I think, is going to be going through that same transformation as well. But I also think there's a bit of a Netflix blockbuster scenario going to happen in construction in particular, and other industries where they're going to have to adopt technology to stay relevant and competitive. And that's really exciting, I think, for people who are in the technology space, who love project controls and the things that we do, because there is a massive transition from the old to the new, which is not easy, right? And I always wonder because I was like Bryn. I was kind of a light touch AI guy. I appreciated it, but I didn't go near it because it sounded dangerous. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people think like that. I think they think that it's very complicated, and to a degree it is. Depends how many layers you get under. But from what I could understand, it was no different than any other computer situation. It had a bigger backing in terms of computational power, and had more insight into what might predicate a forecasted future. So the idea, I think, or the premise I thought was really cool about AI was, would it tell me something I didn't already know about something that hasn't happened yet, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And so I think the fact that you've got this in the survey is fantastic. Again, I should shout out that this is a qualitative survey. So this is people's opinions. And like you said, everyone, you didn't force anyone through your views of what AI was, which I think is really, really lovely to do, because their interpretation of AI is important as well. But what about machine learning and AI? Do you draw a line in your own kind of, I guess, assessment of the qualitative nature of this survey, or do you think you just bundle them all under AI because at some point we'll be working for machines?
Well, I think for
Adam?
the purposes of the survey, to try and pick the difference would have been probably a bit futile. The level of understanding even within the technology industry of where those lines are is pretty blurred. So yeah, I think AI as a broad term is probably the only way we could have gone that would have made any sense. Yeah. Do we have a future for predictive analysis in construction? I think the answer is inevitably yes at some point. But again, I think really where I would be more confident in focusing AI and harnessing some of that is probably on the assistive side of what we do in construction and project controls. So I probably don't want a computer to predict or plan my delivery schedule yet for me, but I'd certainly be happy to have AI do some data collection and marking up a drawing to categorize what sort of building materials you need or something like that. It's not critical to delivery, but it's certainly an assistive technology at that point. And I think that's probably about where I would see the construction industry being most ready to utilize some of that information right now.
Yeah,
you can see how that sort of builds on itself, I guess, in terms of, again, just building trust in this sort of this unknown or sort of semi-unknown thing for many of us. So so as people put their trust in it and they kind of go, oh, it's working pretty well, they trust it to do other things as well. So it's sort of it encouraged the embracing piece. So
yeah.
Well, you remember like the Alexas or the Google speakers, right? I think this was the start of machine learning encroaching on our lives without us knowing it, or maybe smartphones. But do you remember like when they first came out? They were real weird, right? When you went over a friend's place and you started talking to his speaker, you're like, "What's wrong with this guy?" And then now everybody's got them, but they don't just have them in one room. They got them in all rooms, and they got them synchronized, and they got them syndicated. And these are people that don't understand machines. Probably can't turn on the microwave or the washing machine, but they can sync their speakers. And the funny thing is, it syncs with everything else. So this IoT world is very interesting. And I think just in general, I think young people come out of the womb not with an iPad, but with the ability to understand what an iPad does. Like if I see my kids, and Bryn, maybe you're the same, and Adam, their understanding of technology is so much different to where we come from, because we didn't have it when we grew up. And I said this on a previous pod, I think it was the last pod, Dale, where I looked at some of the guys coming out of uni, and they're fantastic, right? Data scientists, data engineers, bright sparks, and they go into construction and they're just like, what is going on here? What is this? They don't understand what to do with it. And the great thing about that is you can teach them the rules of the game. So project controls and PMO and kind of what we're doing from a workflow perspective, but they all turn it into something technical by default almost. So they all work in this dimensional space. And I think, is that interesting? I mean, one of the questions I had from that, so I am going somewhere with this, Bryn, I promise, and Adam, is...
Sound like me, Dale.
What?
Oh, sorry.
Exactly, I know, yeah. So what is the age group or the demographic of the people, if you had that information from the survey? Did you find it was a lot of, just all over the spectrum, or was it just young people? Was it just old people, something in the middle?
I don't know that we're allowed to ask.
Yeah,
Are you not allowed to ask?
No, well, actually, in fairness, we don't. So I don't think we can't give you stats on that, unfortunately.
We might actually
Next
have
survey.
to look into whether or not we can. So it would be sort of interesting to sort of see what is the spectrum that we're seeing. But,
surely you can. I mean, we get Spotify analytics for the podcast, for example, and it gives us a full kind of spread of. I mean, they're doing it. So if they
you're right. Sorry,
we
can. I'm probably in interview world. So yeah, no, you're right. I'm sure we can ask them just to get the stats and stuff, because you're right. It is that's that.
Admit your age. We want to know how old you are. Not that that's a problem, but I think it's an interesting stat attached to maybe some of the ways you respond. Yeah. So would it be interesting to see how a 20-something-year-old would respond to that survey versus someone who's been in the business, or maybe it's just the number of years they've been in the business, like in project controls or in big projects or construction or whatever it is. That would be interesting too. But I've kind of got off subject of AI because I think, we could go around and around on that, but I'm not going to topple Adam here. He knows what he's talking about. I wanted to talk about something else. I knew we had some really, really interesting topics, but digital. So you've got a lot of digital information in your survey. And I love how you've broken that out. So there's some few areas there. There's 4D and 5D planning and BIM. And we can go into that in a second. But you also talk about AI, which we did cover. And then we talked about BI performance dashboards in your survey. I might start with BI performance dashboards. And for anyone who doesn't know, and tell me if I'm wrong, BI is business intelligence. Is that right?
Yes.
Good. I passed. All right.
You did.
And is that related to, is that an old handle? I just wanted to know. Or is that something that's just kind of carried over from a previous life, like BIM, where everyone hates the terminology, but it's stuck? Because business intelligence is very ambiguous. Does anyone know the answer to that? Adam, do you know?
To be honest, it's probably more just a hangover than a specific choice that we made. I mean, business intelligence, management information, analytics, there's so many different ways you can sort of classify it. But again, I think we're going just for that thrust of understanding of we're talking about reporting, but it's probably a bit more than just churning out a report. So
who is naming this stuff? We've got to stop this.
For me, it's sort of I always find myself sort of picking myself up when I'm referring to reporting, because reporting just feels so retrospective. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like that's not what we're here to do. We're here to help people deliver these projects. We're here to help people make decisions about the forward stuff. And I know, and effectively a report does that as well. But I still feel like there's this mentality that reporting is all about just looking back. And so I say that for me, the need to sort of give it a different badge, and I'm terrible for badges because I've forever sort of going, yeah, that's a good one, and we'll come up with that and we'll use that one for a bit type thing. And it won't be my idea, it'll be something else I picked up from someone else. But I just sort of think it's an enabler of enabling us to sort of talk about it in a different sense, and to highlight the people that this is always about, looking back to look forward, not just about looking back, basically. So yeah.
So I think you had a great stat in this. I've just lost it now. I skipped it, but it's something around the overall time to, I think, report or develop or analyze the reports. Is that right? And here it is. I found it again. Time spent gathering versus analyzing data. That's a cool stat. I won't give it away, but what's the intent with your conversation and your understanding of PI dashboards? Do you feel like, from that kind of stat there, do you feel like we spend too much time generating lagging indicators, let's call them, or reports that are in the past that don't have any value on anything that we can really change in the future?
For me, I mean, it's always been a bit of a bugbear is when you walk into large projects and programs and you say, right, when do you close off your reporting period? When is the report out the door? And I've been on projects where the time it took to complete the report generation cycle was longer than an entire calendar reporting period. So they're actually burying themselves in reports and could never actually stay on top of what it is that those reports are even there to do, which was to give them an insight as to where they were and do something actionable in a short period of time. So and that was all down to the process, but also, you know, the technology they were using and how they then surface that information. So, you know, if you're spending more of your time turning the handle on copying and pasting, correcting the Excel errors, doing this and that, and formatting it, versus looking at what that report told you and doing something about it, yeah, that was sort of what we were trying to get at, is where are you on that spectrum, and then did that have any leading or correlation to the success of your projects? So I think it's fair to say, if you actually spend time doing something actionable rather than just generating a report, you will be more successful. And that's really what that was all there to try and prove on that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's another one that you sort of see. I mean, I'd like to go around the table with all four of us here, actually, because actually, again, the amount of organisations that still are using sort of, you know, 100-page sort of month-end reports and the likes that you know, take tens of people to basically pull all that information together over several weeks type thing, massive amounts of efforts and stuff, and then you'll have it. Then it'll be presented at a month-end meeting. You'd be lucky if the team spent half an hour going through it. Yeah, I'm not a detailed person, so I can't stand that. My ability to sort of comprehend what's in a 100-page report is not going to be there. So actually, you know, make it more succinct and make it more, you know, highlight what the key issues are and the likes, to enable me to get my head around it, to enable me to know where I need to focus and which decisions I need to make, and the likes is where I need to be. And it's amazing how many projects are still a long way away from that.
Yeah, completely agree. And then I can definitely tell why now the integrated project controls survey and digital insights is only 13 pages. So that's perfect. That makes sense, because Bryn doesn't like 100-page reports. So perfect. I actually think as well, you're 100% right, but I think the calendar absolutely destroys us, because there's two layers of reporting, and maybe Dale can give us insight because he does work in a heavy reporting industry. But you know, there's the business as usual reporting, where you do the 2 weeks of updates and 2 weeks of analyzing and pumping out reports. That's your month gone. And then some wise chap, some director decides that he wants other types of reports on top of those reports. And those reports can't come out until the standard reports are out, because you need those reports to draw insights. So you end up in this kind of compounded, always late, a lot of issues because they're forced errors, aren't they? And you then sit there and you sit in a room, and for however long they like to do it, they decide on what they can't control, and you have a whole bunch of actions for the next meeting. And I think reporting is one of those things. I think AI and machine learning, or any automation in that space, is coming, and it's going to be really valuable. And that's why I think BI. So when we say BI, for any other listeners who don't know, we're probably talking in your language around Power BI, Tableau, Cognos Analytics, you know, kind of engines that will manage the data sets for you and transform them in a way that you can understand them. Everybody loves dashboards now, don't they, Bryn?
They do, especially people like me. But yeah, no, I mean, I just think for me, it seems so obvious. But I think that's the thing. I think when people see it and see a dashboard solution rather than the 100-page report, they're very quick to sort of to sort of shift the focus to going over there. And more these days, that we just from our business perspective, we're getting lots more work in this space because visibility that's getting out there, people are seeing it and kind of going, I want that type of thing. Yeah. So anyway, yes, I love a dashboard.
I think
Adam, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I think the other one, which is a bit of a sort of personal interest area for me, is actually what's happening below that pretty dashboard at the front end. Actually, that pipeline between where that information came from and how it got there. There's a lot that can happen within the industry to improve that situation, and it's sort of an underappreciated element of it. It's not just about picking up the Power BI and it all magically works. You need good information sources and potentially a data warehouse and all that stuff. So the tool sets around how you can employ those within the construction industry, it's going to be a massive area of opportunity for people in the coming years, I think, to enable simplified, faster, cleaner reporting in general.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I do think, and then we did mention Martin Paver, but, I think, there's a really important piece that we play in projects in this generation is this data custodianship piece. If we want machine learning and AI, I think you're right, Adam. We need to get the data right. We need to get the quality right. That throughput is super important because you can always bolt on a dashboard to a false set of numbers, a false set of reports, poor error. It doesn't change the input, if you like. So the input's still just as important, and that governance as well. But I'm going to get Dale in because he's been sitting there listening to us.
Yes.
We were on about all sorts of. He loves it. He does love it. But Dale, get in there.
No, I do love it. I was just thinking, there's two ways to increase the analyzing proportion. One is either to get the tools to decrease the gathering, or two, to get more people in to do more analyzing. And then I was thinking, well, if you have the finite business rhythm, as you're talking about, well, you can't really get more people in that same space because you need the data gathered before you can analyze it. And then I was going back on, well, at organizational level, have they actually costed up how much it actually costs for people to gather that data versus how quickly a machine would do that? Do we have that type of data in this report, Bryn?
Actually, I don't know that we cover it specifically, but I can give one specific example sort of jumping in my head at the moment is I think we're actually it's not a at the moment we spend a certain amount of money on a project controls team, say as part of the delivery, and so that's we've got that, and that's we've got a sort of a finite team. And what we're finding is when we automate, when we get things working well and we automate the processes and automate the sort of the integration of the systems and the report production, we're not only able to sort of decrease the size of the team that's actually doing the work, but we're equally able, with the remaining team, we're equally able to spend more time doing the analysis. So we can save time or save money in terms of the size of the team, and we can do what we actually should be doing as part of that role is sort of analysing the information, so we can basically present information to the leadership team to sort of say, look, we've got a problem coming up here. We've spotted it. We've done some sort of thinking around it, and this is the options for what we can do to resolve that problem. So we're kind of helping that whole process of delivery for less cost because of less people, basically.
Yeah, I think anecdotally, I've looked at sort of doing a bit of a time and motion kind of study for how a larger organization, I won't name which ones, ran their reporting cycle. A lot of it was Excel based and manual copy pasting versus what that could look like if you automated at least part of it. And I came out with some pretty scary numbers around potentially there was a couple of £1 million a year in labor savings alone, just for unforced errors on copy and pasting, getting cells wrong and stuff like that. The labor and throwing it at the reporting problem is often not going to be the answer. Getting it right and getting it through quickly is orders of magnitude better if we can get it. But it's about how do you make that happen and trust the outcomes that are coming through that process is the challenge that we have to get over to get there.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely
so. I think,
agree. Sorry, go ahead, Bryn.
If I can build on that, because I think there's and Val kind of touched on it before as well, which is the data quality versus you got to get the data quality right, because otherwise crap in, crap out type thing. But my view is actually I think it's important that we focus on both getting the data quality right in parallel with actually trying to present that data better, because actually one will enable the other. So if we present information in a more succinct manner so that people can get their heads around it, it will very quickly pull out where data is where there's erroneous data being put in there. Whereas at the moment, and again in big fat reports, it's very hard you can't see the wood for the trees, so you can't see that data. It's very easy to hide poor data or erroneous data. Whereas actually, if you make a leadership team and the managers delivering the project more, if you present that information more clearly to them, then actually they'll be more interested in it. They'll look harder in it. And that in itself will drive a culture of, oh, I better get this right, or I better, I need to make sure that the data quality is right, because actually now they're actually looking at making decisions off the back of these reports. So it's do it in parallel is my view.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you. It becomes less of a show and tell. And it's, it's one of those things where this is the data, this is what the data is telling us. You haven't written a report from your perspective. Why is it different to what you believe is happening? And it's a great, I think it's a great leveler in a way, because you do have people that are particularly good, project managers, controls people, at telling a story and selling and making it believable, even though it may not be the full story, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think what data does, and what you're talking about, shows you the full spectrum, and say, make your own mind up of what this is telling us, and let's have an open conversation. So it peels back that layer of transparency. But I do want to move on to and make some time for 4D planning and BIM and 5D BIM. And just a shout out, I was reading obviously the early copy you gave us to Marco Facenda, a good friend. He's got a quote in there. The increase of BIM/4D planning used in projects shows that there are great benefits in tool integration, but still some ground has to be covered before it can be used more widely. Now, you wouldn't have put that in there unless you agree with that sentiment, Bryn. But before we jump into it, for those that have never heard of BIM, B-I-M, if you don't understand my accent, what is it and why is it in the report?
Should we test you, Bryn?
Yeah, we'll probably test me. So we've sort of wrapped it up. We've wrapped it up in both because traditionally we sort of talk 4D planning, I think, and 5D BIM, and we sort of wanted to sort of bring the two together a little bit here. So and I have to say thank you to Marco and several others as well, who were sort of happy to be quoted within the survey this year. It was one of the things we did want to sort of bring industry into it a little bit more. So it wasn't just the logical sort of voice of the 1,000 people that sort of gave it to us, but it was others were coming in and sort of coming in and reinforcing it as well. So so in terms of what it is when we're talking in that 4D space, obviously it's just bringing together the schedule and the 3D design model itself. It's obviously a massive enabler of, I think, for me again, it's from a leadership perspective, actually enabling a leadership team to visualize progress through the visualization of a design model being sort of built up, or a digital model being built up, is very powerful compared to getting them to try to understand a Gantt chart or whatever the case might be. So from that perspective, that's and it was amazing to sort of see the step change in the number of people that have actually the number of projects that are actually using 4D BIM this year as well. There was a massive step up, which was also really positive.
Yeah, that is interesting. Adam, do you want to jump in there and comment?
Yeah, no, definitely a surprising step in the number of projects utilizing 4D specifically. I think BIM is another interesting one. It's been going over the years with a bit of a struggle for everyone to actually understand what is it even. But yeah, so then start talking. We have projects now that are doing 5D BIM. They've integrated the schedule. They've got the 4D model. It's now integrating with cost and potentially they're using it for progress markups. They're using it for automated takeoffs and estimation in the first place. It's incredible where that's going in the project delivery space. But I think actually the other thing that I think Bryn and I have talked about this before is have people lost sight of where BIM was actually intended to go in the first place, in that which is it's the longer term operation and management of that building for the rest of its life. So it's the question or the challenge in that space is, have we in or during the project delivery phase, are we actually keeping an eye on what are their information needs, and are we structuring the information we capture now with an eye to where that information needs to go later? So I think that's something that does need to be looked at as well. because actually, whilst there's some value for us as the project delivery professionals to have 5D BIM and all that, the greater amount of value for BIM and what it will do for the industry is actually at the end of its life, not necessarily during project construction. So I think that's
the operational phase.
Yeah. So I think that's one that that there's a lot more to see and happen in that space. Again, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, that is awesome. We spoke to Christina Henkai a couple of episodes ago on this, and she actually said, I think Val was agreeing as well. It needs a rebrand because it might sound a little bit boring, and she calls it visual planning. And so you actually have this, this image of people standing around, either whether it's a hologram or 3D glasses or whatever the case may be, talking about cost, schedule, and the works, and how construction might happen and be delivered. So it is really, really interesting. But I want to know in terms of the future of this, because I know, Bryn, when we spoke to you last time, there's a company out there that just offers BIM freely. They're called Logikal. You mentioned last time, whether clients want it or not, you apply it, and can you give some insight as to what the reaction is when you say, well, whether you want it or not, we're going to give it to you?
If I'm honest, we haven't actually followed through on that as much as I would have liked. So thanks for the reminder. No, but it is for me. It's a little bit the same. It's the same point, and I will continue to push it. And it's still on my agenda. I'll push forward on it. But I don't like to say and not do. So for me, it's the reason I was saying that, because I do think it's when people see it, it's a little like the dashboards, the comment that I made before. When people see it, they kind of go, this is bloody awesome, and it really helps me understand what all this data is actually trying to say. So that visualization piece just makes the world so much easier, and that's why I was particularly keen just to offer it, so people actually saw it and did it. So we're not the reason behind the step up that you've seen in this year's survey, unfortunately, but it's on our agenda and we'll keep pushing it.
But you will be in next year's results. So. Yeah, we've heard it twice now, Val. It's been recorded twice. Logikal.
Yeah, no, we've got it on record now and transcribed and on YouTube. So.
No, but I think it's important. I do think that's for me. That's sort of it will become an enabler and stuff. And the point that you're one of the past sort of the lady that you mentioned before. So I've forgotten her name, but the fact that it's, for me, it's all about the visualization piece, and that's one of the massive benefits during construction and delivery of the projects. But as Adam was inferring, the BIM itself is extremely valuable from an operational perspective once you get into that phase. Yeah. So, and from that, just due to the duration of the life of the asset, largely, and I sort of see ourselves as in addition to sort of leveraging it to help construct and deliver the jobs better, actually we're also an enabler of getting to the end of the job with a digital asset that largely matches what you've built. Such that it can then transfer into the operational world and be leveraged even further from that point.
Yeah, and the project controls team within your construction project is pretty well focused on the information management as it is. So to be part of championing that side of the information collection and capture it probably is a natural fit within most organizations. So I think that'll be something that we'll see becoming the responsibility of the controls team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's incredibly hard to convince people when they don't want to be convinced that, this technology, this methodology helps, when there's so much evidence out there that it does. And so I really admire you, Bryn, in saying, actually, well, whether you want it or not, we'll look to bring it in and show you how much value it actually does add. So it is really, really important, I think. So rounding it off, though, are there any sort of other areas of the report that you'd like to cover in terms of anything particularly interesting that hasn't sort of been shared in previous versions, new questions that potentially gave us some interesting angles on anything, Bryn?
From my perspective, Adam made the point earlier, and I guess I'd probably just sort of round it back to it, and that is, look, there's a lot of fantastic technology and the likes that's going to help us move forward as an industry. There's a lot of, as Val was saying, there's a lot of fantastic young talent that's going to come in and help that change and deliver that as well. I sort of think, but what we just have to make sure as an industry, though, in addition to embracing that and cracking on that front, we've got to focus on getting the basics right as well. So getting the fundamentals in place to enable good data to be captured, and then leverage through all that clever stuff and clever people as they're coming through is for me is a key one. So as much as we'll move more into that digital space as part of the survey piece, project controls will always sort of be at the foundation of it, because it's at the heart of sort of pulling it all together and getting it all integrated and honest, I guess, is sort of the drive. So
yeah, good thoughts. Adam, what was your favorite stat to come out of this report?
Well, again, I think the 80-20 one's sort of high up there. That's sort of close to my heart. But I think the other interesting one is really just around that focus that we're going to see in the industry in the next few years on system implementation, system integration, information management. We saw a stat come through that in the next 2 years, 20% of the respondents said that they're going to be focusing on doing systems implementations. That's up from 7% the year before. It's probably got something to do with COVID and the fact that digital sort of working has become an increased focus. Mm-hmm. But just, that's a massive jump in a year for where the focus within the industry is shifting, and information management it's going to be big. So we got to keep an eye on that, I think.
Awesome. So we are coming to a part of the podcast where I think, Bryn, last time we had you on, we did take you through Tenor, which is a quick pop quiz. The questions have changed slightly, and we have shortened down to Fiverr. So they're 5 questions, quick 5 questions. So if you're ready, we'll go through that, and we'll go in the order of Adam to answer first, and then Bryn, if that's okay.
That works. That works.
Awesome. Question 1. Would you rather spend your day with people or technology?
Still got to be people.
Bryn?
I would say people, but it's very easy to get excited and get excited by technology as well. So I do like people. I'll go people as well, but there's a part of me that wants to say tech. So
it's a tough one. Question 2. What's more important, time, cost, or quality? Adam?
Oh no, I'm panicking. let's say cost. I don't like that answer as I say it. It's the one that always wins, though.
Bryn?
It is. I always like to sort of say, time is money. So and the space that we're in, I think, again, slightly biased because we grew into the world of controls from a planning and time perspective, basically. So I feel like there's a lot of people that have come into it from a cost perspective, but we're one of the few that have come in from a time perspective, and therefore we understand the importance of cost, but we equally or more so perhaps understand the importance of time. So I have to say time.
Interesting. Question 3. What is the best book you've been gifted?
I wasn't gifted, but I was made to read a book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance at University. Big favorite. It's quite an interesting one, but very heavy to read.
Nice. Bryn?
I have to pass. Can I pass on this? Only because I don't think I've read a bloody book since we last did this, and I'm pretty sure I can't say the same answer as last time. So, I'll give you
an easy one, Bryn. What's your favorite podcast?
You guys, of course.
Not leading the witness at all there, Val.
Not at all. Smooth out.
Question 4. What is the biggest mistake you've made on a project?
I accidentally, it wasn't me directly, but a project that we're on sent letters to dead people.
What? Holy cow.
Can you embellish on that, or you can't? I'm curious.
It was an IT project. They were trying to migrate a bunch of users to a new system, and they were trying to maximize the number of users that they could get into the new system. They had a list of potentially no longer alive clients that were still paying their bills. We said very carefully to the developers, do not just send a letter. You're going to have to very tactfully contact the next respondents and try and confirm what's happening with this account. And something got lost in communications. They sent the letter.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Bryn?
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you top
actually,
that?
No, I can't top that. But I would sort of say I think probably my biggest failing on a project was on a project down here in Oz, actually back in 2011, and I let optimism. I had optimism bias in terms of the fact that we could achieve an end date, which the data was saying that we couldn't, and I was sort of torn between trying to get everyone believing and pushing and driving towards still trying to achieve that date, and just keeping the foot on the accelerator type thing, and when I knew the data was sort of saying the opposite. So that was probably my biggest mistake.
Awesome. Last one. What profession other than your own would you like to have attempted?
I like the idea of being a pilot a long time ago. I'll still enjoy flying. That'd be a fun one.
Nice. Bryn?
That would be as in a jet pilot, Adam, or just a what sort of plane?
Well, any with an engine is probably the first preference.
I see. Very good. Yeah, I could. I would do. I would do. Actually, I always used to like the idea of going to be a dive master. So you do a bit of diving with various people. So I'll pick that one.
Nice. Gentlemen, thank you for having a bit of fun at the end there. There's so much in this survey, the report, the output, the insights into digital, everything around diversity and inclusivity, etc. Thank you, as Val said at the top of it, for, putting this together year after year and providing it to the industry, because it's hugely insightful. And folks, look out for it. We'll work with Bryn and Adam to get the links out as well, so you can get a copy in your hands. Before we end the podcast, though, any final thoughts? I'll start with you, Adam.
No, I think Bryn said it as well. For me, tech space is great, particularly within the construction industry, but it all comes down to the fundamentals that we do day in, day out with our jobs, and that's the where actually we'll make the biggest gains and the biggest advances within the industry is continuing to improve upon how we manage information and the processes that we use. So that's probably my greatest focus, even within this space, is how do we continue to get that right and get better at it each job that we go to.
Awesome. Bryn, final thoughts from you?
I'm going to make my final thoughts about you guys. So thank you to you guys. It was a nice change for us, actually, just to be launching this with yourselves rather than just on our own. So thank you for providing a platform and providing a voice and actually being prepared to sort of share this survey as well. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you as well. Val, final thoughts from you?
Yeah, well, I just want to say thanks to you, gentlemen. I mean, I really love the Project Controls survey, what it stands for. We love to support it. Obviously, we'll continue supporting as much as we can, getting the notice out there and pushing the passion back into the profession. I was thinking about that while you were talking, Bryn. So please check out the Project Controls survey, the largest in the world so far. And we'd love to hear feedback as well. If there's things that you think that should be in there, I think these gentlemen would love to have that feedback loop as well. So if you want to use our pages or get in touch with Bryn or Adam, please do, and give them the feedback that they need to make the survey all that more valuable.
Awesome. Thanks, Val. And Val, I like correcting you. It's the Integrated Project Controls and Digital Insights report.
It's too long.
It is quite long. It is quite long. That's probably my fault. Let's squeeze it all in. So,
No,
thank you guys. It's great.
It's Project Controls. We'll make an acronym out of it somehow.
Exactly.
But, yeah, it's been awesome. So, folks, that's all the time we have. Remember to hit subscribe before you go. A massive thank you to Bryn Lockett and Adam Kingsbury. And thank you all for listening. Till next time, we say stay safe, be disruptive, and have fun doing it. From me and Val, it is bye for now.